peace be upon you, and Allah's mercy and blessings. Welcome to Revelations of Islam. In this video, together we will explore valuable teachings of Islam that, insha'Allah, will strengthen your faith and bring light into your life. In a world of many distractions and varied influences, it is essential to know who we choose to share our time and energy with. Some relationships can be sources of light, pushing us to grow spiritually, while others can lead us into forgetting our ultimate purpose. Today we're going to explore 5 types of people who can unwittingly take us away from Allah and harm our spiritual journey. It is these subtle yet powerful influences that are crucial to identify and understand. Before continuing, a quick reminder: subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next videos. If you like what you see, a like would be greatly appreciated, and feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for your continued support. 1. Selfishness and vanity. In the world around us, calls for recognition and honor are omnipresent. We live in a time where image, reputation, and the quest for the admiration of others can sometimes dominate our lives. Social media, social expectations, and even family and friendship dynamics can cause us to constantly seek approval from others. In this context, it is essential to understand the true nature of humility according to Islam, and why it is essential to keep away those who feed our ego. Islam is not just a religion of rituals and prayers. It is a comprehensive guide to living a life that honors Allah and reflects His teachings in every moment of our existence. And among the most crucial virtues we must cultivate, humility takes center stage. The Quran teaches us that humility is true greatness, and that seeking honor for oneself is a trap of the ego. In the following verse, Allah reminds us of the seriousness of arrogance and vanity. Do not turn your face from people in arrogance, and do not tread the earth insolently. Allah does not love everyone who is proud and conceited. Quran 31-18. This verse speaks directly to us about our behavior towards others and how we should act in our daily lives. It's easy to succumb to the temptation to appear superior, to want to impress others, or to seek recognition that flatters our ego. Yet Islam teaches us that true honor lies not in what we possess or in the admiration others give us, but in our humility and total submission to Allah. Spiritual reflection. When we surround ourselves with people who feed our ego, we fall into a dangerous trap. These relationships based on appearance and pride lead us nowhere spiritually meaningful. The question we must ask ourselves is, are these people pushing me to seek recognition from others, or are they encouraging me to seek Allah's satisfaction in my actions? It is crucial to remember that life is a test, and that every action must be guided by pure intention, not for appearances, but to please our Creator. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, often emphasized the importance of humility in our lives, and he warned us against vanity. He said, "Whoever seeks humility for Allah, Allah will exalt him." This means that humility, far from demeaning us, truly elevates us in the eyes of Allah. There is a divine beauty in recognizing oneself as humble, not through weakness, but through the desire to follow the path of Allah. Humility does not consist of belittling ourselves before others, but of positioning ourselves in the right recognition of our own weakness before Allah, the Almighty. It is this gesture of authentic humility that attracts Allah's mercy to us. Inspiring story. Once a man came to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and asked him to pray that he would be honored in society, so that he would become respected by people. The Prophet answered him with great wisdom, "He who seeks honor for himself, Allah will take away true greatness from him, but whoever seeks humility in his heart for Allah, Allah will exalt him." This word is incredibly profound. It shows that those who seek honor through worldly means will ultimately lose what is truly precious, that is, true greatness in the eyes of Allah. On the other hand, those who demonstrate humility, who act in sincerity for Allah, will receive from Him an elevation that nothing and no one can take away from them. This kind of humility is a form of spiritual greatness that transcends worldly honors. It is pure honor, based on purity of heart. Questions for reflection. When I seek to accomplish something, is it to please others or to please Allah? Am I surrounded by people who constantly remind me to stay humble, or am I influenced by those who seek to feed my ego? The trap of vanity is insidious, but Islam offers us the way to protect ourselves from it. Seek humility for Allah, and not for the admiration of others. It is a path that leads us to inner peace, to the satisfaction of Allah, and to true spiritual elevation. This section is intended to open our eyes to how external influences can affect our hearts, and to remind us that it is essential to nurture a humble relationship with Allah, not a fragile ego that seeks recognition from others. Say in the comment sections, Allah is great. 2. People who seek to control your heart. In the quest for truth and divine light, each believer faces a multitude of external influences. Among these influences, there are people who, under innocent or even affectionate appearances, try to manipulate our feelings and our loyalties, gradually distancing us from our faith. These people may appear to be friends, family members, or even close colleagues. Their method, subtle but dangerous, consists of sowing doubts or pushing to place human bonds before obedience to Allah. The danger is real. When someone begins to influence you to compromise on your religious or spiritual values, the line between loyalty to your faith and loyalty to earthly causes can become blurred. These influences often hide behind forms of love or companionship, but their real goal is to distract you from what should be your top priority, Allah. The Quran warns us against this with strong and clear words. It is not proper for a believer or a believing woman, when Allah and His Messenger have decided a matter, to still have a choice in their decision. And whoever disobeys Allah and His Messenger has gone astray in manifest error. Quran 33:36. This verse clearly shows us that our loyalty and our choices must be governed by the will of Allah and what His teachings tell us. Every decision we make in life, no matter how small, should be influenced by our faith and not by the desires or expectations of others. If we give in to the pressure of those who try to control our choices, we risk losing our way. Love for Allah above all. One of the most powerful things that Islam teaches us is that our love for Allah must surpass all other love. Love for Allah is pure and unalterable, while human friendships or relationships are fleeting and often influenced by worldly interests. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, taught his companions that love for Allah and His Messenger should be the priority in the life of every Muslim. Human relationships can only be nourished if they are based on this fundamental priority. The temptation to compromise. Have you ever had that experience where, when faced with a difficult choice, you felt pressured to compromise on your spiritual values? Perhaps someone close to you has asked you to do something that goes against what you know is right, but under the guise of maintaining a relationship or avoiding conflict. This is where the subtlety of the illusion lies. Islam teaches us that every action, thought, and relationship should be guided by absolute loyalty to Allah, not by fear of disappointing others or being rejected. Thoughtful question. Think about your current relationships. Do you have friends or family members who pressure you, even indirectly, to compromise on your religious beliefs? Perhaps you are encouraged to neglect your prayers or engage in practices contrary to your faith, under the guise of having to respect a tradition or to avoid conflict. The question is, how far are you willing to go to maintain a relationship with these people, and at what spiritual cost? Relationships that pull you away from your spiritual priorities need to be reevaluated. Love for others, no matter how noble, should never surpass love for Allah. Islam teaches us that our hearts should be purified and directed only towards Allah, and not towards human desires or causes that can lead us astray. The trap of blind love. It is also important to understand that love for others does not necessarily mean that it must come at the expense of our faith. Islam teaches us to love those around us, but within the limits set by Allah. True love is that which brings us closer to divine truth. When you love someone, whether they are a family member or a close friend, that love should be a love that strengthens your faith and guides you in the way of Allah, not a love that pushes you to transgress divine rules. Inspiring story. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, experienced similar trials, notably when his companions found themselves faced with difficult choices between their loyalty to their family and their faith. In one of the most poignant moments of the Sirah, life story of the Prophet said to his companions, "There is no true love until you put Allah and His Messenger above all else." This statement is a powerful lesson about maintaining a balance between our earthly relationships and our devotion to Allah. Subtle influences can sometimes deceive us, but we must remain vigilant. Don't let relationships that seem sincere distract you from what is most important, the right path, the one that leads to Allah. 3. Negative influences. Modern society, with all its distractions and temptations, can easily become a breeding ground for negative influences. These influences, often subtle but powerful, come from people who do not seek to elevate you, but to lead you into behaviors that lead you away from the right path. These toxic relationships, like seeds of misguidedness, can seep into your life and, without you even realizing it, begin to sow doubt in your heart, causing you to question your spiritual beliefs and transgress divine boundaries. The Quran, in its infinite wisdom, warns against this type of influence. Allah tells us, "Do not enter into the company of transgressors, for you will only corrupt yourselves and stray from the way of Allah." Quran 9:24. This verse is a clear warning. Evil company can corrupt not only your actions but also your thoughts and your heart. Those who push you to behave in ways that go against the teachings of Allah are not good companions. Their influence may seem harmless at first, but in the long run it draws you away from divine light and into the darkness of doubt and sin. Transgression of the limits set by Allah is not always obvious. Sometimes it presents itself in forms that we consider harmless, but which, if repeated, end up affecting our soul. These small flaws in our faith can gradually become deep fissures, making it difficult to return to the right path. Bad companies, by encouraging actions that go against the principles of Islam, become like invisible poisons that slowly eat away our spiritual purity. Signs of negative influence. The first step to protecting yourself from these influences is to recognize the warning signs. If you find that certain relationships in your life are causing you to make choices that you know are contrary to your beliefs, then it is high time to reevaluate those relationships. For example, if some people encourage you to stray from prayers or neglect your religious obligations under the guise of fun or convenience, these are red flags. Islam teaches us that our faith must be our priority, and anything that takes us away from it is a temptation that must be avoided. Negative influence can also manifest itself through comments that encourage jealousy, anger, or envy. If your conversations always revolve around criticizing others, finding fault, or spreading rumors, these influences are not only unhelpful, they are dangerous for your soul. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "The believer is neither the one who lies, nor the one who spreads rumors, nor the one who seeks to harm his neighbor." The danger of small transgressions. What starts as small transgressions, like missing a prayer, judging others, or engaging in harmful behaviors, can quickly spiral into a spiral of sin. By giving in to negative influences, we begin to trivialize these small actions and consider them insignificant. However, the Quran reminds us that every little action counts. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, teaches us that even small actions that seem unimportant are noted by Allah, and that they can either bring us closer to Him or further away from Him. This brings us to a crucial question. Am I allowing small negative influences in my life to grow and turn into bigger sins? This may be difficult to accept, but the reality is that the human soul is fragile, and every bad choice, no matter how small, can have a profound impact on our relationship with Allah. Inspiring story. There is a hadith where a man came to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, confessing to him that he had been attracted to bad deeds because of the bad company he kept. The Prophet answered him with wisdom full of clarity. If you want to purify your heart, move away from bad influences and surround yourself with those who will elevate you spiritually. This story is a powerful reminder that those around us play a crucial role in our spiritual growth. If we surround ourselves with people who do not share our religious values or who tempt us to sin, it becomes increasingly difficult to remain steadfast on the right path. But if we choose to be in the company of those who sincerely seek to draw closer to Allah, their presence will strengthen us and guide us towards the light. Spiritual reflection. Take a moment to think. What influences do you have in your life that might pull you away from your faith? Evaluate your relationships and social interactions. Do the people you spend the most time with have a positive impact on your spirituality? Or are they pushing you to compromise on what you know to be right and sacred? Bad influences not only divert you from the path of Allah, they corrupt your heart and distance you from the divine light. Be vigilant. Move away from those who lead you astray and surround yourself with those who elevate you. This way you preserve your soul and your connection with Allah. Before continuing, a quick reminder. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next videos. If you like what you see, a like would be greatly appreciated, and feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for your continued support. 4. People who constantly ask for more than you can offer. In life, we are often faced with situations where we give to others, whether it is our time, our energy, our love, or even our resources. Islam teaches us to be generous and to give for the good of Allah and humanity. However, it is essential to recognize that there are natural limits to what we can offer. These limits are not only physical or emotional, but also spiritual. The challenge lies in the ability to recognize these limits and not allow those around us to exceed them. There are individuals who, voluntarily or unconsciously, constantly ask us for things that they know we cannot give, or at least not in a healthy way. These people never seem satisfied, and their demands continue to grow, leaving little room for our own spiritual, physical, or emotional needs. Their pressure can become a source of stress, guilt, and exhaustion. But Islam, with its infinite wisdom, reminds us of the importance of recognizing and respecting our own limits. The Quran teaches us this fundamental truth. Allah does not impose on any soul a burden greater than its capacity. Quran 286. This verse is one of the most comforting principles of our faith. It reminds us that each of us, in our individual condition, has natural limits. If Allah does not place a burden on us that is beyond our capabilities, why should we allow others to make us feel that we must always do more? The dangers of giving without limits. Giving is a beautiful virtue, but it is important to understand that giving, without ever setting limits, can have harmful consequences. First, it can lead to spiritual and physical exhaustion. When we constantly give without taking care of ourselves, we drain ourselves of our energy, time, and resources. This type of generosity, while it may seem noble, ultimately harms our overall well-being, which can affect not only our physical health, but also our connection with Allah. Furthermore, boundless generosity can sometimes lead us to bad intentions. We can start giving not for Allah, but for the recognition of others, or out of guilt. This loss of pure intention turns an act of kindness into a burden, and this burden can harm the purity of our hearts and actions. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, always set an example of measured generosity, knowing when and how to give without being overwhelmed by incessant demands. He said, "The best action is that which is moderate, even if it is small." This teaches us the importance of moderation in all our actions, including giving. Giving in moderation preserves our energy and allows us to stay focused on our spiritual path while helping others. Balancing responsibility with moderation. It's easy to get caught up in the incessant demands of others, but it's crucial to remember that our first responsibilities are to Allah, then to ourselves. If we exhaust ourselves by giving to others, we risk neglecting our own health and spirituality. It's a delicate but essential balance. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, taught us that we can only help others effectively if we ourselves are healthy, both spiritually and physically. An exhausted person who constantly sacrifices himself cannot be effective in his service to Allah and others. Therefore, it is vital to know our own limits and never get caught in a cycle of giving at the expense of our well-being. Inspiring question. Sometimes we give too much, thinking it is an act of kindness. But how much can we give before it affects our spiritual and physical well-being? Are you constantly stressed and unable to breathe? These questions force us to reflect on our own lives. Do we allow others to exceed our limits? How can we give generously while preserving our energy and our connection to Allah? Signs of excessive demand. Recognizing when you are overstepping your boundaries can be difficult, especially when it comes to people close to us. However, there are clear signs. If you start to feel stress, anxiety, or guilt when you cannot meet the demands of others, this is an indicator that you are being pushed beyond your limits. It is essential to establish healthy boundaries and never lose sight of what is truly important, your spiritual health and your relationship with Allah. Inspiring story. There is a story of a companion of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, who despite his many responsibilities to his family and friends, sought to help everyone around him. However, he was advised by the Prophet, peace be upon him, not to sacrifice himself to the extent of neglecting his own needs. The Prophet said to him, "Your soul has rights over you, just as your family has rights over you." This simple yet powerful advice reminds us that our first responsibility is to ourselves. It is not about giving without counting, but about giving in a balanced way, taking care of what we have received from Allah, so that we can continue to serve others with a pure and strong heart. Spiritual reflection. Balancing the demands of others with your own boundaries is an act of love and wisdom. Never let social pressure or guilt keep you from what is best for your spiritual well-being. Islam teaches us to be generous, but also to be aware of our limits in order to never lose sight of our ultimate goal, the satisfaction of Allah. 5. People who take you away from your faith. In this world, there are relationships that, without us always realizing it, have a profound impact on our faith. Some people around us, although they may be kind and caring in a human way, gradually distance us from our relationship with Allah. Their company does not remind us of the greatness of our Creator. It does not inspire us to do good, to improve ourselves spiritually, or to continue our growth in the way of Allah. This is where one of the greatest trials of life lies. Recognize people who do not bring us closer to Allah, and have the wisdom to step back before they negatively influence our faith. The ultimate test, the simplest but also the most difficult, to know if a relationship is beneficial for our soul, is to ask ourselves an essential question. Does this relationship bring me closer to my Creator? If the answer is no, then it is time to seriously evaluate the nature of this relationship. Some relationships, even if they are pleasant and warm on the outside, can be invisible obstacles that distract us from the right path. The Quran gives us precious light on this subject. True believers are those whose hearts are filled with the fear of Allah and who are driven by this fear at every stage of their lives. Quran 13:28. This verse emphasizes the need to have relationships and friendships that nourish our faith, inspire us to be conscious of our Creator, and to be constantly motivated to do what pleases Allah. It is therefore essential to recognize that anything that takes us away from Allah should be avoided, even if it sometimes seems like a sincere friendship or close relationship. The importance of remembering Allah. One of the signs of a beneficial relationship is that it reminds us of Allah, especially when we are distracted by life or its challenges. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, constantly encouraged us to be surrounded by those who uplift us spiritually. True friends are those who, in our times of doubt, remind us to return to Allah, pray sincerely, and stand firm in our faith. If instead certain relationships encourage us to neglect our prayers, compromise our principles, or ignore Allah's teachings, they become a danger to our soul. Bad influences can sometimes be disguised as mundane friendships, but they distract our hearts from what is essential. When someone leads us into futile discussions, into actions that serve no spiritual purpose, or into behaviors that harm our faith, it is imperative to step back. These toxic influences are not always obvious and can hide under excuses like, "Everything is fine," "It's no big deal," or "It's just a small deviation." But every deviation, no matter how small, can take us further away from Allah, and it often starts with small steps that we end up accepting unconsciously. The importance of surrounding yourself with people who uplift you spiritually. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "The virtuous friend is like the seller of musk. Even if you do not buy, you will enjoy his perfume." This metaphor is full of wisdom. The musk seller, even without us buying anything from him, leaves a trace of his perfume which permeates us. Likewise, a virtuous friend does not seek to manipulate us or coerce us into acting in accordance with his will, but through his own virtue inspires us to become better and closer to our Creator. He doesn't need perfect words to lift us up. His presence, his example, and his behavior are enough to remind us of the right path. It is this virtue that makes all the difference. The entourage we choose must be one who supports us in our moments of spiritual weakness, who inspires us to do good, to increase our devotion, and to improve ourselves as human beings. If, on the other hand, a relationship is dragging us down and moving us away from these goals, it is time to reevaluate this relationship. Spiritual reflection. Take a moment to think about those around you. Do the people around you often remind you of Allah, encourage you to do good deeds, and remain firm in your faith? Or on the contrary, do they push you to neglect your religious obligations and give less importance to prayer, fasting, or good deeds? Inspiring story. There is a companion of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, who once confided in the Prophet, asking him for advice on the importance of choosing virtuous friends. The Prophet replied, "The virtuous friend is like the seller of musk. Even if you do not buy, you will enjoy his perfume." This response perfectly illustrates the impact that a positive spiritual relationship can have on our own journey. Relationships that take you away from your faith are dangerous to your spiritual well-being. It is essential to surround yourself with people who always remind you of Allah, who encourage you to be better, and who push you towards actions that please your Creator. This is how we find true friendship, a friendship that transcends this world and guides us to the afterlife. It is our responsibility to protect our hearts and souls from influences that take us away from our Creator. Choosing our companions wisely and surrounding ourselves with those who uplift us spiritually is a key to remaining firm in our faith. Don't let anyone distract you from what is essential, and remember that true friends are those who bring you closer to Allah, those who encourage you to stay on the right path, whatever the trials. Before ending, if this video was helpful to you, and you want to continue learning and growing in faith, don't forget to subscribe to Revelations of Islam and activate the bell to receive all our new videos.